Where are you from?
I'm originally from Virginia, Newport News, Virginia. You ever heard of that?
Yeah, you know.
Well, it's an area called the so you have Norfolk, mainly Norfolk military area. They all come from there. So I'm in a place called Newport News around Hampton. A lot of athletes and rappers come from there.
Ironically, my uncle, Richie, he actually he was born in Queens, but he ended up playing football over there. He ended up playing running back. Good looking guy, 6 foot something. He was rolling. But ironically, his ancestors came from there. Their last name is Kenshin, but it's derived from Kinshin,
Okay.
which seems to be a pretty popular ancestral, almost like 𝗀𝗏𝗄𝗎 last name. So that was always interesting, that dichotomy, because a lot of people from there moved to New York, Virginia, the South, etc., with that whole migration. And reverse of that now, where people are moving from New York back down south.
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot of it was there. You may know some people. Mike Tomlin, the head coach of the Steelers.
Oh God, I'm a Steelers fan.
Michael Vick.
Oh yeah,
Allen
sure.
Iverson.
Oh God.
Missy Elliott, Timberland.
Yeah. Oh, so they're from over there. So that's by the
same
beach.
Area. They're from the same peninsula area. So it's the 7 cities that occupy that area. So they're all from there.
A lot of talent.
Oh yeah.
So pretty, melting pot. I can see, a lot of talent, different things that people are getting involved in. What was your upbringing like?
My upbringing was a strong Baptist church upbringing. My dad was a blue collar worker. He worked at the shipyard, so he worked at the base. They built the ships.
Wow.
Over in Norfolk. And my mom had a lot of jobs. I mean, she used to be, she worked at a funeral home.
Yeah, wow.
She worked at a bank. She did a lot of things. I do have an older sister. But my upbringing was pretty good. I was a really skinny kid when I was young, but I was bad.
Yeah.
I was a bad kid. I was Dennis the Menace in the class clown. I used to have a really bad stutter, so that was kind of my way of
kind of shielding that, or being able to overcome that.
Myself, by being goofy, So, yeah, but my upbringing was pretty good. I never got into any major trouble, anything like that. Graduated in 2005, so almost 20 years ago.
Wow.
And then I moved here in 2006. My mom, she had ovarian cancer at the time. She was already down here, so she left right after I graduated. And so my dad was still in Virginia. Mom and sister came to Florida. Mom got sick. I decided to come help her out.
Of course.
So I moved here, and the rest is, you'll find out.
Yeah, of course, right. Now, where did the love for videography, recording, possibly even radio, when did those things start really sparking your interest?
That started when I was extremely, extremely young because of my speech impediment.
Oh.
So I used to have a really, really bad stutter. I still do it sometimes, more like a stammer sometimes, but if I get excited or I think fast, it'll come out. But I used to have a really bad stutter, and I would get picked on and made fun of, all that. So I had years of speech therapy I went through. This is, in the early 90s. So it was still new, and I would mimic a lot of radio hosts. I would listen to them. I would listen to their cadence. Listen to, I don't know if you know Art Bell.
Heard of him, of course.
Space Coast to Coast. It was a late night conspiracy thing. I'd stay up late and listen to that, or even Howard Stern.
Oh, God bless him.
𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗏. Those guys were the ones that I would mimic all the time. And so what I would do podcasting before podcasting was the term. So I would take a tape deck and record my friends just doing this.
Wow.
Listen back to it just as a therapy thing to help me get over my speech problem. And so I always had an obsession with radio. I've always been an audiophile. I've had those big speakers that your parents had. That was all mine.
Yeah, when the jams,
Yeah, that was such a young age. That was all my stuff.
Yeah.
I would tinker with all the electronics. I would dive into comedy. I would also do public speaking because that was part of my speech therapy.
Sure.
So I really got into entertaining.
Yeah.
And that was where I was like, I have to do this. So I always told people I was going to be on TV or I'm going to be on radio. Always. Even you can ask my eldest friends. They're like, yeah, we knew.
You got very passionate about it, and it provided you solace. We're going through things like that where we can recognize, we're different. That doesn't necessarily need to be an impediment. It depends on how you respond to it, and obviously you confronted it and dominated it. I know your father played a very big role in your process becoming the professional you are. When it came to your academics and things like that. What was his response? Where, hey, Dad, I want to get into radio or film and things like that. Being a ship guy.
So my dad was very old school, traditional. He'd come home. He was big into sports. Football was his thing. He's bigger than me.
Really? How tall was Dad?
Dad was 6'5", about 45. He was a D1 college athlete. He ended up having a knee injury that.
Yeah, it happens.
So he stayed at the shipyard. So he was very passionate about me being an athlete.
Yeah.
And I was a baseball star. I never played football.
Like 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲 type thing, yeah. Nice and tall.
I wanted to be Frank Thomas. Thomas was my hero. If you guys don't know who Frank Thomas is, number 35, Chicago White Sox, one of the greatest of all time. Wow. Anyway, that's who I wanted to be. He was first baseman, played first base, and I like the catchers too, Mike Piazza. So that was our thing. We watched Sunday Night Baseball all the time. My dad coached the baseball teams that I was on.
Wow.
Right? He was every game. He came to every game.
Wow.
Even though he still worked 12 hours a day.
Yeah, he's a hero.
Yeah. We had arguments though. When I made high school, I had recruiter because I was this size when I was 13. I stopped growing when I was 13.
So is that kind of the demographic in your family? Tall men, robust. You know what I'm saying? Like
athletic? So I'm actually the small one in my family on my dad's side.
And what are you, like 6'2", 6'3"?
I'm 6'3", just about 6'3". I was almost 400, but I'm about 270 now.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier my dad was 6'5". His brother, my uncle, is 6'9". Good
Lord.
So I'm the small one in my family. So I come from giants.
Wow.
Right. And so when I was in high school, I had recruiters knocking on my door, begging me to play.
Yeah.
And I had no interest in football because I saw how passionate my dad was about it and the angst it caused him.
Takes a hold. Yeah.
Because I watched him play. Not watch him play. I watched him watch games, and he, old school ass throwing stuff at the.
You immersed. Yeah, like don't talk to me after the game. Half hour.
Super Bowl 30, Dallas Cowboys versus Steelers.
Oh Lord, yeah.
That's one of the worst memories I can remember.
Oh God.
I just said I remember that game.
Yeah.
The Cowboys won. Steelers lost that game.
Oh man.
That was one of the worst I've ever seen. And
he was a Steelers fan?
Yes.
Oh man, that's my guy, man. Yeah.
Steelers fan, and so that was. I knew then I never wanted to play football.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah, so we had a lot of issues with that. And my dad, I was also a gamer.
Yeah.
Electronics. So he had just him being traditional and old. He really didn't see that the value.
He was outside. He was getting dirty. Yeah.
So my first job, I worked at Best Buy.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
That was I did that as a kind of like a poke to him. It's like, see, all his games, I work in this department. This is making me money. I mean, he's cool with it. He just okay. Yeah. But he wasn't like set in his ways. He had his idea or something, but if you showed him the value in something else, he was like, okay.
He was positive about it, as long as you're doing something positive.
Yeah, yeah. So when I told him about what I wanted to do, he was cool with it. He was buying me the stuff, all the electronics and all the other stuff. My dad was a funny guy too, so we would write movie scripts together. Wow. Like not the whole scripts, but like the synopses and all that stuff. And until his last day, we're still currently working on one. So my dad was a huge lifter for me. I mean, he paid for my broadcasting school. Wow. Completely paid for it. Like he was forced to retire at 48. He got hit by a drunk driver.
Wow. And
so he couldn't do the job anymore. So he got settlement and all that stuff. So he paid for I told him this is what I want to do. He's like, oh, 100%, let's go. Let's do it. Didn't even hesitate. Just paid for it. And that was the greatest thing he's ever done. So
now,
a lot of respect for him.
Yeah, absolutely. May rest. But I will ask you, being that this education ultimately set up the stage for what you're doing now and providing for your family, how did it make you feel to know that you had that support? How important was it to get that from him at such a crucial moment? Because as a young man, And we're looking at giants, right? No matter how tall your father is to you, he's a giant. You know, we're trying to just emulate and make them proud. You know, we begin life trying to make our parents proud, and then we try to make our kids proud. You know, how important was it for you to have that support at that moment?
Oh, you ever heard of imposter syndrome?
I know.
Right. So imposter syndrome, it plagues a lot of people in our professions. I don't mean that just in entertainment in general. People who do something for a living that they are passionate about,
Yeah.
because it comes so natural to us sometimes, we feel like we really shouldn't be doing this.
I went through that in IFA.
Yeah, it's called imposter syndrome.
Wow. Like you can never be what you think you're meant to be.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
I didn't know it had a
Even
name.
though everybody, but my dad and my wife, you know, they pushed me, they validated that for me. Was like, look, you've been doing this forever. Like I've doubted myself plenty of times.
Yeah, greatness has doubts.
You know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, they were very big in keeping me afloat, because, you know, I used to work 20-hour days, and
Yes, sir.
this was never like this before.
No, sir.
You know, we'll get into that, but the grind was always the
Real.
grind. I was just in this cycle that I knew I had the talent. Everyone else was telling me I have the talent, but I never pulled the trigger because I was so either scared or I doubted myself.
So, what were some of these? I mean, you know, you're going through now broadcasting school. You're doing very well from the conversations you have. You were top of the line student. You got into radio after that, correct?
Literally the day I was graduating, I got called while I was walking from the radio station. And if you are here in Central Florida, you know, can I mention?
Yeah. Nice.
So I was walking, and I know the phone number because I've called it a million times. I'm
Sure.
like, this is the radio station. Call me. So I answered it in front of it. I asked the dean, "Hey, can I answer this? This is the radio station. Call me." He's like, "Yeah, of course." So they called me, and they wanted me to intern on one of the morning shows. You know, I was like, "Yes, of course." So I immediately got in radio the next week right after I graduated, and that doesn't normally.
No, kind of placement in anything,
Yeah.
really. You know, you don't get placed that quickly usually.
No, that normally doesn't happen. And I was in the Monsters in the Morning. So if you guys are familiar with this in Central Florida, it's been around for 30 years. I was on that show for a year. I interned, met a whole bunch of celebrities. It was great. You know, I thought I made it then.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm here.
Yeah.
This is the build. This is where I want to be forever. I don't want to do anything else. This is it. And then, you know, reality does set in. You know, times have completely changed since old school conventional radio days.
Sure.
You can't just be a radio host.
How long ago were you seeing this transition now, being in the industry for over 20 years now? When did you see things? When did you have that moment where you're like, yo, I'm at the studio, I'm seeing what we're doing, I know what's going on at the world. When did it set in, like, this is not going to be like this in a decade?
I knew that it was different when high-speed internet came out.
Wow.
Because there was so many things that were just available at an instant. I knew traditional things weren't going to work that way anymore. Like when TV started getting DVRs,
Yeah.
I knew things were going to be different. You know, I was still doing the podcasting thing. It wasn't called podcasting then, but I was still recording, burning them on CDs and giving to my friends. I knew that was going to get antiquated, you know? And so when high-speed internet was really, really popular, so like 2008, 2009, and social media, because everybody wants everything now. And then when Netflix started to have the on-demand stuff, because you remember Netflix was just disc.
Yeah.
They used to mail you disc.
Yeah.
But then now they had this whole entire library where everything was on demand.
Yeah, it changed.
I knew. So even when I was in broadcasting school, I previously had already had a podcast that I created that was getting 20,000 downloads a month. I was already a pro when I went to broadcasting school. In podcasting terms, I still was learning a ton.
Sure.
But just I was already in the podcasting game because I knew this is on-demand media was going to be king. But for me to be able to get further, I had to get in radio. I had to follow the traditional avenue because it takes sometimes it takes these companies longer to see the vision.
Yeah.
But I knew it was going to come. I knew it was going to come, but I still needed a foot in the door.
Now, you mentioned you met a lot of people when you get this with the Monsters in the Morning and whatnot. Who were some real class acts? Who were some people that maybe surprised you or just had a memorable impact after interacting with them?
John Witherspoon. We actually became friends.
Wow.
You know, rest in peace.
Yeah.
You know, bang, bang, bang.
Yeah, yeah. God bless him, man. Pops, man.
John Witherspoon, Bobby Lee, comedian Bobby Lee.
Yeah.
Pablo Francisco.
Okay.
He's an old school comedian. He was one of the ones that I would mimic. This is the year 2000, I remember.
Yeah.
I saw his Comedy Central special, and he would do all those voices, and I would mimic those voices because I still did have a stutter then.
Yeah.
You know, and I would record myself doing his skits.
Wow.
I told him about that, and he thought it was great. Marlon Wayans.
Really?
Yeah. Marlon Wayans was great, and a ton of wrestlers and stuff. But John Witherspoon, probably my favorite.
What was it like meeting him? You know, I mean, Pops to me, like, and I'll call him Pops just, it's how many people recognize him as. He was the kind of guy, because Friday is classic. When you looked at him on screen, you're like, man, I wouldn't mind that being my dad. Or I wouldn't mind just listening to him. Because you see they put it up recently, like they put up a photo of Friday with like *𝘃𝗀𝗃𝗍 and, the mom and everybody. And you're like, this doesn't look like a movie still. This looks like a cookout picture, And you see the advice, and, shout out to 𝘃cie𝘂𝗍𝗋, because his films, they really do have a message, and people get it. And you see the advice he's giving Craig, and you're like, man, I wish I had that. What were some of those interactions, or what was it like meeting him?
So I'm a person that doesn't get starstruck because everybody is a person.
Sure. Yeah.
And from being at the radio station, a lot of celebrities would come in and out, and sometimes they would have to put on for the radio. John Witherspoon, that was him.
Yeah.
That was him. He was still humble, really nice guy. I talked to him about podcasting.
Yeah.
He did have one.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I influenced him.
No, yeah.
But he did have one. But one of the most genuine guys. We actually sat and talked after the show. So normally they're only there for one segment or two segments because they have to go to all the other radio stations.
So they have like a tour.
Make their rounds. So he stayed. And we talked. Right? And we talked. He gave me his phone number.
Really?
Yeah. We talked for a while. I never called him, but just probably the best interaction I ever had with a celebrity. And if I would ever get a chance to hang out with him again, rest in peace. But he would remember me. I know he would, because we talked for a long time. He just seemed really, really genuine. He was somebody. It was like, you ever heard of parasocial relationships?
No.
Okay, so this is very, very big in entertainment, which includes television and radio. Right? If you're on television or radio for an extended period of time, people know your life in and out. This is happening with you. Yeah. People know your life in and out because they consume the content that you put out.
I didn't know that had a name either.
Right?
That's wild.
So what happens is they develop relationships with you, right? Not sexual, but they develop a relationship with you as if they already know you.
Like people come running up and they're like, "Hi, Aaliyah," and I'm like, "Whoa,
exactly,
yeah, for sure."
So those are called parasocial relationships. And so with John Witherspoon, you recognize him from
he's like family.
So you kind of already
word.
So there was never a oh my God, I'm talking to John Witherspoon. I felt like I already knew him. Yeah. But he responded as, this is me.
Just so that natural.
What you see is what you get.
Yeah.
And so I loved it. I mean, that was my best experience on video.
Yeah, God bless him. A lot of great visual memories, a lot of parasocial memories with him, and may he rest, man. So that's interesting. Now, you're going through this process now. What happens after the radio experience now when reality sets in and now we have to move on to something else? What was your next moves?
So reality set in. So there was a gap, right? I did my internship for a year. I begged them for a job, and so me, I'm different, right? I wasn't really a big sports dude. Did hip hop spots looked like me on the station. Yeah. So I tried. Yeah. There was one guy, but I think that was their quota. Yeah. Right? And so I didn't get called. Didn't get called an entire year.
Wow.
So the depression kicks in. I'm like, wow, I just experienced the highest of highs. Yeah. And then now nothing.
Boom.
They just, thanks for your service.
Yeah.
Bye.
Discharge. Yeah.
So I'm like, man. So I got back into I used to do music, just as a hobby because I was learning how to use the equipment, learning how to use the programs to build my podcast and do all those other things. So I got back into music, doing a couple of tracks with my friends. Yeah. And they sounded decent because
one of them I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, we're not talking about But so what happened was my song got out to somebody. Somebody heard it. invited us to a Christmas party, right? All of us, the crew that we did the songs, came to a Christmas party because they wanted us to perform on a cruise.
Nice.
And we were like, oh my God, is this our shot? Holy
This
smokes.
is it.
This isn't even what we wanted, but all right.
Yeah.
So we all went to the party. We met them. Great, great people. Then I found out this guy has a radio show in the building where I was at.
Get out of here.
We never crossed paths.
Wow.
But he has a radio show, and we immediately hit off, and he's like, Phil, I need you on my show. And it was a sports show,
Nice.
but he's like, you offer a different perspective. I'm like, absolutely. So that's how I actually got back into radio, was through a connection that wasn't even supposed to even happen because I was supposed to just do music.
Yeah.
So I got back into radio from that. And then so we actually stayed on the air at that station for a year, and then we got picked up by ESPN.
Wow.
So our show got picked up by ESPN Orlando. So we moved to ESPN. It was a different station.
That's a pretty big hub, I would imagine. I mean, the wide world of sports is here. ESPN's very, in contact and integrated with Disney. So I would imagine you were seeing a lot.
So what happens here at radio stations, you have major companies. You have Cox, you have iHeart, which was Clear Channel, you have JVC. So those 3 different buildings.
These are the umbrellas.
Yeah, they hold all the different radio stations.
Wow.
So Cox Media had the ESPN radio station. So how that worked was ESPN Cox licensed the ESPN brand to create a station.
Wow.
So we were an ESPN affiliate, official branding and all of this stuff. Yeah. But we were more on the fringe. Yeah. Right. But the show that we were on, like I said earlier, we brought a different flavor. It was completely different. Yeah. We didn't talk about the traditional stuff because we were on at night. You got all that stuff during the day. Yeah. So we talked about action sports. We talked about MMA. Talked about wrestling. Nice. Orlando's a big wrestling hub. If you guys don't know that. Yeah. And nobody talked about it in Orlando except us. Yeah. We talked about those friend sports, and that was probably. I learned a lot of good, and I learned a lot of bad. They say never meet your heroes, or they say don't work until your job. Like when you work a job, it becomes definitely you hate it.
Change your impression of things for sure.
And I learned a lot from radio that helped me develop my interview skills, that helped me develop my personality traits, that helped me develop my marketing skills, that helped me be able to host a show on my own. Yeah. I've had to do those impromptu shows by myself when I didn't know I was hosting this show by myself until I got there.
Like, here's the mic,
So that was like, you throw somebody into the water and hope they swim.
Being able to freestyle,
Yeah, and so that was great. On the negative side, it's a company, it's a business.
Yeah, it's corporate,
It's a corporate. They don't give a damn about you.
Yeah.
They just care about the numbers. They just care about all that stuff. And so I was in a weird position because I was like, I'm back. I'm back in my position. I'm on a syndicated show. Yeah. People recognize my face. Yeah. Well, they hear me. They understand who I am. Yeah. I'm like, man, I'm not making any money. Wow. There is absolutely no money.
Most people wouldn't expect that.
No, there is absolutely no money. Only the people that make money.
Wow.
If you haven't heard the name, they don't make any money.
Wow.
Right? And so it sucked the life out of you because you pour so much into it.
Whole education that I would imagine, anything alternative like that isn't going to be cheap. And apart from that, highly specialized, there's revenue flowing through, but it's not going to probably the people that are actually making this ship run. It's going to the face. So yeah, it's and it happens with a lot of people in their early 20s, a lot of graduates were like, yeah, I made it. And then when you actually get there, you're like, man, there's a lot of dues to be paid, and sometimes they don't show those dividends until a decade down the line. So it's very grueling. And what's crazy is we live in a time where there's such a constant concept of instant gratification, and you see that's why people are getting so burnt out so quickly, because you're being sold this dream of, hey, pay this amount for school, all this stuff, you're a really attractive candidate, you're going to get placed in a position that you're going to be in for the rest of your life immediately. And it's easy to see based on your experience that wasn't the case.
No. And doing that grind for so many years, it killed my love for what I did.
You became a professional.
Yeah.
You lose the hobby aspect of it, the novelty aspect of it, the joy.
Yeah. So like the first couple years, like, I'm
you're really
ready to go. And then by the time it was almost over, I just was like, we're doing another show today.
Yeah.
You know? Like, and so I was like, at that point, I was like, man, I have this killer idea. I've already done idea. I want to bring podcasting out.
Yeah.
So I went to the people at the radio and say, we need to incorporate podcasting for the radio shows.
Now, what is the difference between conventional radio and podcasting from an audio standpoint? Because for the untrained ear, they might not recognize the difference.
So terrestrial radio is what you find on the different dials.
The dial, okay.
Right? So whatever dial station, and that's broadcasted with the satellite. So you can only hear something at a certain amount of time. So make sure you're there at 8 o'clock at night if you want to hear this show at this time.
And then it's gone.
And then it's gone, right? It's gone in the ether. But with podcasting, it's like Netflix for radio.
Okay.
Right? It's like Netflix for radio. So let's say, and it's so, nowadays it's so large and so vast, there's podcasts about anything. So, I want to find a podcast about training dogs.
How many podcasts are there, Phil?
So
Last time you checked, the average.
So there are over 4 million podcasts out there. Right? I'm sure there'll be a lot more. There's over 4 million podcasts out there, but there's podcasts about everything.
How many succeed?
Less than 1%. And
what do we define success?
So, what the statistics are that a podcast that has that's released an episode, over 10 episodes, and has released an episode within the past 6 months, is less than 180,000
out of 4 million.
Out of 4 million,
and that has various degrees within that scope, of course. So before we get into podcasting, when you come to them with this idea now, hey, we need to podcast, how are you being responded to?
What's a podcast?
Wow. So we're talking about what we like to call mustache Pete's, like people who've been in the industry 30, 40 years, old school radio. We're not switching anything up, especially for you.
I mean, even years before when I was interning, even before I even got to that point, when I was interning, I told them we need to be doing podcasts. And they actually listened to me. And so we created an intern podcast, right? Got great numbers, but then the host ego got in the way.
Yeah, sure.
So they shut that down. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I got blackballed. I don't know.
Yeah, pride always gets in the way of progress.
Yeah, but I always knew that podcasting was
the future.
Oh my gosh, the future. It's on-demand stuff, and people will get raw. Netflix is popular though. That's why all the major stations now do streaming. Like, who has cable anymore?
No, I don't.
Yeah, it's just, everything is streaming.
Yeah.
And so when I went to them and told them we need podcasting, they looked at me like, no, our way into doing it. You can only go to them so many times and tell them something before you're like,
until you're blue in the face, you're done.
Yeah. So, contract time came. All of us on the show, so there were 3 of us, 4 of us actually. None of us we all decided to not continue because we weren't happy with what was going on. And the other hosts had vision for themselves that they wanted to do.
It was about them.
Well, I'm saying, but they had visions for themselves that didn't include radio.
Okay.
So they decided to not renew their contract either. So it was kind of a cumulative decision. So one of the other hosts, her name is Myra. I love her. She's one of the Orange County commissioners here in Orlando.
Nice.
So that's what she wanted to get into politics.
Yeah.
Right. So obviously that's a full-time thing. You have to focus on that.
Oh yeah, sure.
So we decided to not renew our contracts, and I'm sitting there like, man, well, okay, sink or swim time. I have this podcast idea for this business that I already kind of do. I've been doing this on Craigslist,
in the underground.
Helping people set up
market podcast. Yeah.
And I was doing it for churches, helping set up podcasting for churches because they would have all these things that, hey, why not put your podcast out there and make some money, with that. And so I had this idea that I wanted to do podcasting for small businesses, right? Because I knew podcasting as a means of advertising was untapped. At this time, it was untapped.
Yeah.
Right? And so I contacted our previous clients and was like, hey, radio advertising costs $5,000 just for a 30-second ad.
That's wild.
Why not be in control of what you want and create your own show?
Because then they're also, vetting what gets placed and what doesn't, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and so why not create your own show? Let me run it for you.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
Yeah.
that's a great idea. Let's go for it. And so that's essentially how Podcast Doctor was born. And then I knew, I was like, wow, this was meant to happen, because I probably, so I don't follow like a lot astrological signs as much, but I've been told my sign is one to kind of follow the herd a little bit.
Which is
the Cancer.
nice.
So I probably would have stayed miserable. This was like, I'm doing my dream.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Besides trying something new.
Yeah.
So the fact that we all did that, took that leap.
Yeah, that was divine. I mean, for everybody to kind of be at the same place mentally, and for the station to be going in the direction it was, for all that to kind of line up, regardless of being Cancer or not, your stars might align a little bit differently from the average crab, right? Mm-hmm. Before we delve into this podcast chapter now, I am intrigued of all of the, athletes that you interacted with by sport. Which sport has the most interesting or eccentric professionals? Is it wrestling? Is it MMA? Is it basketball? Who were the guys when they were walking in, you're like, wow, this is going to be an experience?
Well, it's basketball players and wrestlers.
Okay.
Right? Basketball players, because they all want to be rappers. Sorry. They all like...
Allen Iverson really
they
set
all,
the trend
they all,
there, yeah.
They all want to be rappers. Poor John Morant. But wrestlers, because I'm a huge wrestling fan.
Yeah, as I was as a young man. Yeah, sure. They
wrestling
also
fan.
suffered some recent losses in that industry, right? I don't recall the gentleman's names, but two.
Bray Wyatt just passed away, and Terry Funk. Terry Funk's a legend.
Well, put it this way: The Rock actually put out posts, for especially the younger one. You know what I'm saying?
36.
Yeah. What happened there?
He had he had COVID, right, from before, and developed a heart issue from COVID.
Yeah.
Was supposed to have a defibrillator, and didn't hear it. Took a nap, died.
God, bro, I'm 31, dog.
Only 36, two very, very young kids.
And I heard he was a star. I heard he was
a very big star.
They were watching him. They were really intrigued by him, man. Just it really changed everything. And you see these effects now, especially from a cardiology standpoint. Like, I have a friend that passed away during that was a college athlete, played overseas basketball. Out of nowhere, caught COVID, took a vaccine. Before you know it, he has major artery disease out of nowhere. Now, mind you, he smoked cigarettes, but, to go from 3 months ago having a physical and being absolutely fine and then, succumbing to this condition, what happened,
Yeah. There's a lot of unanswered questions there. I don't know the answers, so I don't want to assume anything.
Who was your favorite wrestler?
My favorite?
Coming up,
Come on, man. Every single school photo that I ever did, I did the...
Shout out to... your eyebrow is pretty comparable.
Every picture that I ever take.
Yeah, shout out to Dwayne,
that. If I could ever... And you know the game 6 Degrees of Separation?
Uh-huh.
Where, let's say you pick somebody and you see how close you are to that person.
Yeah.
I am literally 1 degree away from talking to him.
Oh, we need him.
So, man, I'm big into manifesting. I am part-time actor. I'm putting it out there. I want to be in a movie with The Rock.
Just let him slam me through a table.
I don't care what it is.
Give me an elbow.
I don't care what it is, because he brought my passion in coming out of my show a lot, because I watched wrestling, and that helped me as well with my speech issue. And so, obviously he was huge and charismatic.
Yeah, so he's fabulous, especially.
Favorite wrestler was The Rock.
His brand is fabulous. I mean, family man. The epitome of what most men would want to accomplish, physically, family, professionally. So, it would be a pleasure. Now, as we go into the podcast, Doctor, as we go into this persona, now you're doing work for, said commissioner. How are things starting now? First and foremost, where did the name come from? Where did this brand come from?
So, my radio name was Dr. Phil.
Okay.
So it was spelled differently, so I didn't get sued by who.
Yeah. God bless.
So my radio name was always Dr. Phil.
Yeah.
And so I was doing podcasting, and so I was a podcast doctor, right? And so I had one of my homies, 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲, created the logo for me.
Yeah.
Which it's the staff of I forgot the name.
Hermes.
Staff,
Hermes. Yeah.
And they made it look like a microphone.
Yeah, they killed it.
With,
Yeah.
coil
Yeah.
and speakers and headset. And so, like, that's a great name. You know, I don't. There's no actual PhD in podcasting, but
if there was one, you'd have it. You know what I'm saying?
I'd be in the upper echelon.
You'd be like the guy with the mustache and the glasses. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And so, I left ESPN. It was August 2019. Right. I moved into my first studio March 17th, 2020. That's the day everything shut down.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I remember the day. It was St. Patrick's Day.
Yep.
I'll never forget because I had just given the deposit to extend the 𝗲𝗏𝗃 the day before.
And our office was less than a mile away.
Less than a mile away. And that's a crazy story in itself. But I remember a certain part of my anatomy dropped, right? I literally went to Erica and I said, we're done for. We just gave set amount of dollars to these people and we're not even going to be able to open. So it got to the point with the quarantine that, we were moving candles as if it was narcotics. I mean, out the back door, unmarked boxes, the handshake with the dollar in it. Like, I'm like, this is wild, man. Right. So how did you guys respond to that?
So COVID actually saved my business.
Yeah.
And I'll explain it to you here. So, my first set of clients was the small businesses, right? And then when COVID hit, they obviously dropped me because they couldn't afford to do what I do. But I had all of the expensive cameras, all of the expensive equipment, and I built my business as being mobile. So I would come to the location, and then once I got my studio, I was like, I'm not doing that anymore. Everybody come in, right? Yeah. Then COVID happened, so I'm like, well, can't do that right now. Yeah. So I had to adjust, but I didn't. But I had to adjust to be the average consumer. And there's so many people out there that want to do a podcast. They just don't know how.
Yeah, it's big.
Don't know how to podcast. So I was like, okay, well, here's what I'll do. I'll adjust my brand to accommodate for everyday people who want to do their podcast. But I didn't want to I wanted to make it affordable for them. Yeah. Because I have all those expensive cameras and all.
Sure.
I didn't want to bring all that stuff to somebody's house.
Of course not. Because
I'm not going to charge them $800 for an hour video. And I would never get paid.
Yeah, it's not feasible.
So I found this brand. It only broadcasted. It's a software-based platform. They were only broadcasted for churches back then. I'm like, okay, I bet you I can use this for podcasting. So I do what I do, and it was run first off of iOS. If you don't know iOS is the operating system for iPhones. And
correct.
It's like, really, all right, podcasting with iPhones. I mean, the iPhone cameras are great.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. Plus, I can do it anywhere.
Yeah.
Immediately blew up. I immediately blew up. Because people were like, yes, come to the house. It's affordable, great stuff. And then people who saw what I was doing, the people who saw what I was doing, they contacted me. Wow. They called me. Like, the developers called me. Like, Phil, we see what you're doing. We love what you're doing. We would love for you to be an ambassador for our brand.
Wow.
Bring podcasting, help people with podcasting and stuff. So I've had a relationship with Switcher Studio with them since 2020, since COVID.
Yeah.
And that literally saved my business because I'm not the only podcast studio in Orlando. I'm not the only person that does podcasting in Orlando.
Of course not.
So I think me using them kind of put me over the edge. And plus my personality and what I was offering people as well. Because what I've noticed is that people have these great ideas for podcasting, right? There's always room for people to do podcasting. Don't let anybody tell you that podcasting is oversaturated. I guarantee you can Google a podcast about cooking tilapia and you'll find one.
We're still in the Renaissance period, I think.
Exactly, right? And so I never discourage anybody from podcasting, but what I've noticed is that people want to do a podcast, but then they don't realize that you have to do ABC, XYZ, 1, 2, 3. It's a job.
Is that why most people fail?
That is 100% because they're overwhelmed. So what happens is they realize they can buy equipment. They don't know what to buy.
Mm-hmm.
So then they either buy too much and spend their whole budget on equipment. They don't focus on getting the content right first.
Yeah, you gotta have a video. Yeah, you gotta have an audio.
Or they skimp on the equipment and have a great idea, but but then it's not polished. It doesn't look good.
Yeah,
It
it's
doesn't
not presented.
sound good.
Yeah.
So what happens is they'll record 1 or 2 shows, don't like the results, or don't get or they have unrealistic expectations. They expect they see Joe Rogan and they think they can do the same thing and then get famous off of one show.
It's deceptively complex. You look at his setup and you'd think, yeah, any smoky room with a camera filter, we can recreate this.
And you know what's crazy? His stuff is incredibly low key.
Yeah.
Like, he can do his stuff on a very, very small budget, but it's Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
That's why it's popular, and he came at the right time.
Yeah.
But Joe Rogan's also been on television since 1995.
Yeah, I mean, from Fear Factor. I remember watching Fear Factor and watching him. Yeah, sure.
That show, Just Shoot Me.
Yeah.
That was in the mid-90s.
Yeah, he's been paying his dues for decades.
Props to him.
Yeah, no, gotta love Joe.
People see that, they have unrealistic expectations.
Yeah.
And then they quit because they'll do 1 or 2 shows and then they're like, oh, well, it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So that's where I come in. I know this sounds like a damn sales thing. But
no, but it's just that frank, yeah.
But so that's why I come in. I have 20 years experience of doing this.
Yeah.
So I do the recording for you. I do the editing for you. I do the distribution for you. Set the podcast up for you. I cut out clips.
I tell you guys, I just show up, and I think we're a perfect example of that. I'm so happy we were able to do this because it's all about flowers, man. I'll never forget because before we actually encountered you, we went through some experiences. Like, some guy stole $600 from us. You remember the little video I showed you of that shall which not be released in that same format. We had a decent following beforehand, but I was literally like in some of the earlier video guys, you can see the watermark of whatever app I was using.
Shot.
Yeah, right. And people really appreciated the content, but it's like culinary arts. You can have the best tasting steak on earth, but if you just slap it on a plate and it looks like a sloppy Joe, people are not going to give it the value or attention it deserves, right? So I'll never forget, after we got screwed over for $600, I had to do an offering to Ogun, I think, or something like that. I needed an ingredient from said Nigerian restaurant that was actually near where your studio used to be. And I was like, man, I'm done with podcasting. I'm done with the channel. I'm done with everything. Like, I told Erica, I'm not dealing with this. You know what I'm saying? I just do my consults, punch in my hours, I'm going home. You know what I'm saying? So when I'm walking towards the place to turn and make a right, I see the microphone staff of medicine from a filmography standpoint, and I'm like, podcast doctor. So I said, well, this is it. If this doesn't work out, I'm done. And I sent it to Erica. I remember we had a preliminary conversation, and I said, man, I really think this is going to work out. And it's been a wild ride since. When you got us, I think we had 6,000 some odd subscribers. We're going to be at 15K by the end of this month. And, like what you've done for me, you've done for countless people. I ask you, how gratifying has it been, or what is the satisfaction you get from being able to take even a situation like ours, or one that might have been a little bit worse, and turn it into a polished, desirable, impactful product?
I'm a very creative person. And for me to be able to take my creativity and transfer that into someone else's creativity and that just supercharge their vision, that is ultimately gratifying.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about podcasting, some people have different goals. Yeah. Right? Some people want to make money, some people want to make a difference, some people want to reach an audience, some people want to educate.
Mm-hmm.
And so me being able to help those people reach those goals the way they want it, but also add my experience and my knowledge and my style,
your direction,
is ultimately gratifying. I mean, we had this conversation off camera. Like, hopefully, this channel will be your job.
Yeah, sure.
And if that works, I'll cry.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so that's ultimate. Like, I'll give you an example. One of my other clients, there's a city of Eatonville. Remember I told you about what happened?
Oh yeah, I'm very familiar with Eatonville.
So the city of Eatonville is a historically black town. One of the first.
The first. What book? Their Eyes Were Watching God. I believe was based off of it. Maya Angelou?
No, it was Zora Neale Hurston.
Zora Neale Hurston, forgive me.
Right?
Yeah.
So city of Eatonville was the first black incorporated town, I think, in Florida, right?
Correct,
right after the Civil War.
Yeah.
Right? Town's gotten, it's not very in good condition. Right?
Yeah.
Apparently the city council had a secret meeting where they sold the city to white developers without even offering it to any black developers. Long story short, the podcast that I produce is a black political activist.
Yeah.
Heard about it, caused a whole ruckus about it.
As you should.
Right? And stuff went viral. Eventually stopped the sale of, pushed it back. I don't know what's going on now.
Or put it under revision, or at least bring it to the forefront of this may be an injustice that's occurring.
So also there's a podcast that I do. It's about rare and misdiagnosed diseases.
Wow.
Right? And so our last guest that we had on the show, she has a very rare liver disease. She needs a liver transplant.
Wow.
So our goal for her, hopefully she can get a liver transplant. She's 29, you know what I'm saying? She's had since she was 9 years old.
Good God.
Right?
What a warrior.
But it's knowledge that we're getting out there, because
awareness,
social media and awareness. But the thing is for her is that she needs a new liver, but it's from a living donor. So whoever donates that liver, they'll be fine in 2 months.
Yeah.
Fully healed. It'll grow back.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, that organ.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, though. Yeah.
And so that's our goal for that show. You know what I'm saying? You know, for your show is education.
Yeah.
You know, getting that out there. And so that's what I really love. I really, really love that. And it's ultimately gratifying seeing my clients happy, you know, because my vision and their vision collide, and super, you know, it's just great.
I tell you, I empathize with that, because growing alone doesn't provide any satisfaction. Like, if you're a tree standing next to another tree, you don't become a forest on your own. You know, and the idea of being able to have a symbiotic, reciprocal relationship professionally, especially with people you're not related to, it's really rare. But, you know, I think we've been able to create that, and we've had fabulous results. And I thank you. Just like I'll thank you at the end. You're Phil, the podcast doctor. You're Phil, the broadcast graduate. You're Phil, the radio guy, Dr. Phil. But you're also a family man, and you're also a wonderful man. You know, you mentioned your father supporting you, but also you mentioned your wife. You know, how important has supports, you know, especially as you've gone through all these hurdles within an industry that's very tumultuous?
I could not have done it. I will 100% say this. I would not be able to be in the situation that I'm in without her. Yeah. You know, she doesn't have to work because we have a special needs child.
Yes, sir.
That takes up 24 hours a day.
Yeah, being a mom is a job. Yeah.
You know, but without her support and her pushing me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to go to broadcasting school. You know,
how long you guys been together? Been around each other?
Going on 13 years.
Wow.
Right? I didn't want to go to broadcasting school. Sure. You know? She would come as a fan of the podcast that I was doing before that.
Wow.
So she's like, "You really got something here. You need to go." Yeah. You know, but she's my cheerleader. You know, she holds the house down, so I don't have to worry about anything when I get home. Yeah. You know, she doesn't have to worry about the bills or anything like that. Yeah. I don't have to worry about anything when I get home.
There's a team.
So I'm able to focus. I'm able to channel more of my attention to this. You know, and so guys, my message: if you have a woman out there that's holding it down like that, don't take that for granted.
Focus.
Yeah,
focus.
Definitely focus. But I will say this again: I would not be in this position without her. Even though there's nothing tangible that you can say.
Oh, but that's the thing.
But she's done more than me. I pay the bills. You know, that's
that. Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But what she's done is way more.
I feel like women are like oxygen. You know, some of them, we talk about tangibles because unfortunately now we live in a society that's so close-minded and a world that's so, you know, material. The intangible has been left behind, but even though you can't see oxygen, you can't necessarily generate it naturally, you know how you feel when you don't have it. And I feel like in a position such as yours, the woman is oxygen. I think in all of ours, the woman is oxygen because she, regardless of whatever the economic dynamic is, what they provide, what the other half provides cannot be quantified. And to ignore that is to fail.
Yeah. That's why I hate to hear that talk. Oh, what do you bring to the table? Like
Well, maybe she is the table. Yeah. Maybe she's the chair that you're sitting on to be able to be at the table. You know, it's much more than what's on the table. Maybe she's the AC. You know, maybe she's the light bill. You know, all these different equations, and I think that's very important. Is always to recognize not the cost but the value of your partner, because at the end of the day, it is a team, right? And you know, I think I saw a clip recently of Michelle Obama saying there is no such thing as a 50-50 equation. You know, it might be 10-90 one day. It might be 51-49 one day. And to hear that from that woman, a powerhouse, and for her to be able to occupy her space with such elegance for President Obama, you know, if it's to be emulated, you know. Now, you mentioned your son, right? Give some awareness on autism for those who really don't understand what it is.
So, my son, he's 11 now. His name is Dominic.
Yep.
He has autism, but he is so autism is a neurological disorder that affects sensory issues, so touch, smell, taste, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's a huge spectrum. So when you hear someone say they're on the spectrum, or you hear someone say, "Oh, he has autism," there's still a vast.
It's easy to get convoluted. You get lost.
Yeah, there is a definite range. But so my son is on the functioning. So he needs constant care.
Yes.
Child. He's non-verbal, so he doesn't speak, which is it's very tough.
Yes.
You know? But he communicates.
Oh yeah. Well, he said hello. He said what's up to me and everything. You know, he's
But he doesn't physically say words like he won't say hey Joseph. You know.
Yeah.
He'll wave.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, and he has you know, developmental issues. You know, he's 11. You know, but he has the mind. They say he has the mind of like a 2-year-old. You know, so he's very low on the spectrum. But you have some kids who are very high on the spectrum. You know,
Correct.
so you know those are the ones that you see that can do so many different things, and you know they just may be socially awkward,
or they may have issues with like you said, the sensory, like certain foods are adverse to them, or they can't stand, or you know, certain things.
So autism is a very huge spectrum. So my son he's like I said earlier, he's very low on the spectrum. He has developmental issues as well. So you know he has some learning issues, and he has anger issues too because he's also probably going through puberty now.
Yes, sir.
He's on so many meds, you know, and so my wife has to take care of him 24/7. You know, just because she can't. Why would she have to work and then have to help?
Of course,
deal with that. But with Dominic and the autism thing, you know, I want people to know that I want people to talk more about that because there's a whole community, a silent community of parents like me, parents like 𝘃𝗵𝗱𝗏, who have a child like that don't say anything.
Afraid.
So this is gonna be a hot take. So my opinions is not Joseph's opinions here. Okay, so remember that, guys. You hear parents that say, "Oh, my child has autism. There's nothing wrong with them." That's your kid, right? They don't need a cure. Like 100%, I want my son to talk.
Yes, sir.
Please cure that.
Yeah.
You know. So, yeah, we get in arguments sometimes because when you hear autism, it's not glorified, but it's homogenized and presented as the other autism.
Yeah, like minute, like something that isn't worth attention.
He's just quirky. He likes electronics. He can put stuff together, or he can draw really well. He just awkward around people. Yeah. No, my son put his head through a window. You know what I'm saying? My son scratches. You know what scares me is my son is 11 years old. He's 5'8", 180 pounds.
Yes.
Like we talked earlier, I come from giants.
Yeah. No.
My son will be big. My biggest fear is something happening where the police have to get called and they don't know what the hell's going on.
Yes, sir.
My son won't respond, and they're going to do something. They're going to hurt him or kill him.
Yeah.
You know, that's my biggest concern. You know, so when I hear parents say, "Oh, there's nothing wrong," I mean, of course I love my son. Right?
Yeah.
But if there was something that would help him be normal, you know,
by all means,
or closer to normal, I'm all for it. You know, so there's a division in the autism community between parents like us and then other parents. But yeah,
I think there's a huge lack of humanity in general, brother. I think we live in a society that tries to be so picturesque, and we just ignore or we just sweep things under the rug. And I think what happens is popular belief is trying to sway people who are going through very specific situations, such as your family. And I feel like it shows a lack of humanity, because to ignore is to be unempathetic. You know, you don't want to feel the things that come with the trauma of having to bring up a child with said obstacles. You know, where is the humanity? You know, and I think that's a real reflection of our culture and of society. Life is not perfect. The pains that we go through as parents, the traumas, the worries, the fears, and then for them to be, magnified by said situations, it's something to be noticed and respected, and just understood. I think there's a real lack of communication. There's a lack of education, because most people don't want to talk about it. And, the same people that are capable of saying, no, he's just quirky. This is much more than a quirk. A quirk, I don't know, an itch, a scratch, what have you. There's an obstacle there that we need to overcome. And by ignoring it, we're not going to be able to accomplish that. I ask you, because with my profession, there's compensation, what have you, but the most gratifying part about 𝗃𝗏 for me was that I was able to not only help people, but also help my family. 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗲 provided me options that I never expected. I'm a college dropout. I come from a very marginalized area. I didn't have influences that, were constructive. My uncles and whatnot, they were doing their own thing. So for me to be able to do what I do and provide for my family made me love 𝗃𝗏 that much more, because I didn't know where I would be. So someone such as yourself, who has the possibility to be able to have, even though a situation with your son the way it is, but to be able to put your family in a position where he can be focused on and be a priority through podcasting. What did podcasting become to you after that, when you were able to realize I can provide comfort and commodity to my family, even though, the tribulations that we face on a daily basis?
So I'll take you back a little bit. When I was still in radio, that was my third full-time job. I had 3 full-time jobs.
Workaholic, man. I admire you, man.
My son's 11 years old. For the first 10 years of his life, I was never home. You mentioned this on a previous podcast. You come home, and they're asleep.
Yeah, I wake up, they're asleep. I come home, they're asleep. I see them twice a day, and they're never awake.
I didn't see my son.
Good God.
10 years.
Yeah.
It was like my wife was a single mother who just had her bills paid.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying? But I did that because I knew it wasn't going to be forever, because of how I was being pushed. Sometimes guys, it may seem like it's nagging, but she literally was like, "This is your gift. You're really good at this." Yeah. And so how podcasting helped me get to where I was, I did a podcast for this company on the Space Coast. We did a tourism podcast for 2 years, and the goal was to bring people to the Space Coast.
Yeah, it's on the east side, right?
Yeah, so Brevard County, so like 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗏 Beach area, Titusville,
sure,
Melbourne area.
Yeah.
So the podcast was successful, and then we ended that run, and that company offered me, they need this, like, we don't want to get rid of you. We want you to be a part of our business. So we'd like for you to be our marketing director, because they see what I do. They've seen what I've done and all this other stuff. I'm like, all right, but I got two full-time jobs.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, so they're like, well, let's work on the pay thing. And then I was able to quit my 2 full-time jobs. And then now I work from home. Right. So that podcasting helped me get out of that matrix grind of working 120 hours, 80 hours a week, and not making any money. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so then I started building up. I started getting busier and busier and busier. And then now podcasting is my main job. And then my day job is turning into my second job.
Yeah.
And so that has afforded me to be able to buy the extra medicines that I needed for him, buy comforts for the house, help my wife out so she's not stressed out about a lot of things, And so, podcasting has been the greatest thing that has ever happened to me, job-wise and financially. So I am eternally grateful, and I can never thank Steve Jobs who made the name podcast.
Shout out to Steve, man. God bless the dead, man.
Yeah. So I mean, it has afforded me a lifestyle that I love, and I will continue to work and do forever until I'm at that point to where I'm an actual entrepreneur.
Yes, sir.
You know, I'm self-employed.
Oh, you're born an entrepreneur. You're just reallocating things, you know, and you get to see me a couple times a month, so that's very
I like
just be thankful for that. And Phil, I gotta ask you before we start rounding things out, man, how has being a head of household and man of family made you better?
Oh man, it's giving me purpose.
Yes.
It is giving me purpose. Like there's no greater joy of being able to provide my family, making sure that they don't need anything. You know, my dad told me this quote before. You know, he told me that when something's done right, people will think nothing was done at all.
Yes.
Right? I'm not sure. I don't think
it's a surgery. There's a surgery, a well done surgery. If it's done correct, it'll be like nothing ever happened.
Yeah. So he said when something's done right, people think nothing is done at all. And so being a father, you get those moments, but you don't really get to live in those moments because everything's got to.
There's another moment. There's another moment.
And so I learned that me being able to keep everything running the way it needs to run smoothly is way more gratifying than, you know, us having to struggle or me getting the validation that I'm providing, I'm doing this. I don't need a thank you.
We don't need a trophy.
Exactly. We don't need a trophy. Just that I know that my family is okay, and they are okay, and I see that they are okay. I'm okay. You know, and this whole junction has been a fantastic ride, and I can't wait to see more in the future.
Phil made me emotional, man.
Good.
You know, I just want to say, you know, whether it's your family, whether it's the spirit of your father, your ancestors, man.
Can we talk about that real quick?
Absolutely.
We were recording the podcast one time.
Yeah.
Remember this?
Yeah, absolutely. How could I forget?
Can you tell us what you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's this camera, right? I remember Phil, you know, before we started utilizing these beautiful facilities, we were at the Botanica. We were making them drive around a little bit, and we had a great session like we always do, and we're wrapping up. And I'll never forget the way my mediumship works. You know, it's shadows, it's shapes, it's like outlines. And I'll never forget, I had a moment where I looked towards his equipment, and I saw this gentleman standing next to his equipment, your equipment. And I don't get scared anymore. You know, you see enough spirits, you kind of, you know, okay, there you go. And I remember I mentioned it to you because, you know, looking at you, and the gentleman kind of looked like you know, as far as, you know, appearances, I said, man, did your dad have anything to do with your education? Did he dress this way? You know, etc. You know, I believe the color black, you know, all these different things. I remember you had a pause, and he kind of just looked at me, man, and he was like, he had everything to do with my progress. He had everything. Everything you're describing is exactly what he was. And, you know, when a spirit reveals itself to a human being, there's a level of trust there, because that spirit is recognizing the purity within that human being to be able to relay the message in a way that is unbiased. So just like with the things that we do, the gratification that comes from it, the closure that we're able to provide as spiritual professionals is most gratifying, and that should really be the motivation. Compensation comes with anything that you put passion into. I know people that are killing OnlyFans. I know people that are doing very well as medical professionals. You can make money doing anything, but the most important thing is that you focus on the real goal, which should be to serve, should be to provide to your fellow human being, and give them what they're looking for. Because in a life where we don't receive accolades, we don't receive confirmations and closures, it's the most sublime service and gift you can provide, whether you're getting paid or not. So the fact that that gentleman chose to reveal himself to me, and hearing the type of man that he was, because to work on a shipyard, you got to have him well set, as we like to say. You know, it was nothing short of a privilege and honor, man. And, You know, Phil, what's next for the podcast doctor, man? What's next for your brand? Where are we going?
That's a great question. I definitely want to expand. I look forward to just this being my only job, I guess
Yeah.
you can say. You know, I would love to eventually hire some people.
Yeah.
Because what I do is, I'm not, like I said, I'm not the only podcast studio here. But what I offer is very unique.
It's very singular.
Each client. I don't take on a lot of clients because I want my body of work to stay at a high level. So with that being said, I need to get people.
Yes, sir.
Right. But I want people who have an idea, who have a vision, to not be afraid to say, I want to continue that vision. So don't let the equipment or the process of podcasting scare you anymore. You don't need to. Just come here.
Yeah.
And I think I've got a perfect niche and a perfect place in Central Florida here for everyone who has a voice to be able to use their voice. And 2024 is going to be the best year yet. Everything I've ever said I've wanted, I have gotten, and I didn't even know I was manifesting.
Yeah.
You know, and so 2024 is going to be the best year for me in podcasting, and so I look forward to that, man. I look forward to your success here, man.
Thank you.
Past 1 million views.
Yeah, man, humbling, but nothing compared to the thumbnail that you created of me. This is fabulous.
There will be more. There will be more shenanigans, and you know, we were talking off camera. This is more. We're still recording.
Yeah.
You know, we were talking off camera about what's next for the channel, right?
Yes, sir.
And so I try to tell you, let's do this that shows more of you and your personality, and I'm kind of the first interview that has nothing to do with 𝗲𝗲.
Yeah, and we were leaning towards that now, because 𝗲𝗲, we've penetrated quite a bit within that material, and people know who we are, and I think the skills and the topics and the way we kind of relate them could, you know, positively be expressed through other topics and other themes, you know, whatever presents itself. So once again, anybody that wants a platform, wants to be able to talk about their story, no matter how unrelated it may be to the spirituality, the couch is all yours. And I tell you, Phil, I've always been very drawn to people who take me out of my comfort zone. And I can say you're one of the people that have made me most uncomfortable in my profession, especially within this manifestation. You know, make a short, you know, open up, all these different things that you motivate me to do. And then apart from that, and I say this sincerely, the caliber of gentleman that you are, it's very rarely that I get inspired. But interacting with you, seeing the man that you are to your family and to your public, it's nothing short of an inspiration, brother. And I thank you for the opportunity, not only to work with you, to, you know, interview you, and for you to open your doors to us time and time again, and to see where it goes, man. Any final thoughts for our publics?
Yeah, guys, if you have people in your corner, listen to them. Listen to them. If you have a vision that you want to do something, try. Because who knows where I would have been if I didn't have podcasting.
Yeah.
I would have had all these talents and they just would have been wasted. You know, working for a job that didn't give a damn about me.
Yeah.
You know, I probably would have been dead. My health was really bad.
Yeah. You're working yourself into a grave.
I'm a partial amputee because of my health.
Yeah.
You know, and so being able to be off the road helped me. My final thoughts are just that if you have a vision, a goal, write it down, continue to do it. Don't stop. There will always be roadblocks.
Yeah.
Don't let any of the barriers stop you.
Yeah.
You know, I think you may have actually said this. You may have not. It may have been one of my other clients. Sorry. If you're feeling like you're getting buried, you may just be getting planted.
That wasn't me, but I can't take credit for that one. But that one's amazing.
Yeah, and someone said that quote to me, and I was like,
yeah,
like my jaw.
You have to look at it a certain way.
So don't stop.
Love you, brother. Thank you.
You too, man.
Couple closing thoughts, family. 𝗀𝗲𝗿𝗲 is up and running for all of your spiritual needs. The podcast doctor's information will be in the description box, but even if you don't see it there per se, I mean, he's very easy to get in contact with us. We can't stop raving about him. The membership program is up and running. If you're in it, please let somebody know about it. If you're interested in all the value we can provide, please be sure to look at the links in the description as well. The podcast is on all major audio platforms, as well as YouTube, obviously. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share. And until next time, family, see the light.